To the morning after CFFL edition, week 11. It was another crazy week in the CFFL as our regular season winds down. We'll get into the action that was this week and then take a look at the playoff picture. First off, this week we saw the Garbage Men take down the Donkeys. The Donkeys have now fallen to 1-10 on the year. They've lost 10 in a row. Good news for the Donkeys is, well, not necessarily great news for the Donkeys, but the good news is they won't set the record for the most losses in a season. That was 13. Also, it was 13 in a row by Brand's Bombers back in the day, because we had 14 weeks then. So, but yeah, winning the first game and losing now is kind of stunk for the Donkeys. Really thought they'd be decent this year. Injuries have kind of taken a toll. Andrew Luck had another pretty solid game with 15.5 as the Garbage Men now move into the final playoff spot. Team LBM fell to the Black Dingles 59-48. Black Dingles very likely now to make the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers at 21, Brandon Marshall at 16.5 for Team LBM as they now have an uphill battle to make the playoffs. And the Badgers take down the Kongs 68.5-38. Mike Evans had 24 points as he's been on a roll lately. Peyton Manning had a down week with only 12.5. Also this week we saw In Rodgers We Trust take down the Bone Storm 52-43.5, taking away the Bone Storm's ability to control their own destiny. Tom Brady at 13, not enough though, because Emmanuel Sanders and AJ Green combined for 25 for In Rodgers We Trust, as they now are tied. They remain tied for the top seed with the Badgers. Horn Dogs take down the Gargoyles 62-44. Russell Wilson and Alshon Jeffrey at 28.5. RG3 at 10 as the only Gargoyle in double figures. Gargoyles also lose their ability to control their own destiny, and next week we'll play a quote-unquote playoff game against the Cardinals. The loser is all but done, and the winner has a decent shot to make the playoffs. And finally, we had the Cardinals, take down the Bruisers 69-65. Jamal Charles at 21. Kelvin Benjamin at 12 for the Bruisers as they fall, and they now still sit in the fifth seed in the playoffs. And we'll take a look at that a little bit more in depth here in a few minutes. But that is the week that was. Kind of a crazy week in the NFL in general, too. There was a lot of upsets. The Broncos lost at St. Louis. Was weird. In our league, fantasy-wise, there were some guys expected to do well, and they did not. Matt Ryan, maybe not well, at least, but better than 8 points against a bad team. But yeah, let's take a look at the player of the week. And it was Jonas Gray for DK's Kongs at 199 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns, and a combined 34.5 points. If you're looking at that and saying, boy, that seems wrong, only the rest of Dan's team only scored 3.5 points, well, that would be true. Dan Hall unfortunately had Jonas Gray on the bench. Boy, when you're thinking of a walk of shame, who had a bad week in fantasy, you have to look at DK. Jonas C. Gray / Jonas for the reason for his walk of shame. Unfortunately for DK, he did not start Jonas Gray. It would have been a win. Kind of that's the way it's been for the Kongs this year. They've had a couple good years in a row, but this year has not turned out that way. Always next year, Dan. You can always look towards the future, as a Cubs fan would tell you. Not that I'm a Cubs fan, Blue Jays fan here. They actually signed a free agent yesterday, so it's kind of exciting. But yeah, so DK will bounce back next year. He's been solid for the last couple, but a bad year this year. On to Griff's gripe, which this week is an anti-gripe, and we'll read it here. This is no gripe. Instead, this is a shout-out to all the Badgers making headlines. Frank Kaminsky from Lyle, Lizzle, and J.J. Watt appearing on Sports Illustrated covers in back-to-back weeks. Chris Borland continues to be a stud replacement of Patrick Willis, and Melvin Gordon set the FBS record for most rushing yards in a game. Too bad Monty Ball sucked. Nice pick, Chet. Yeah, Melvin Gordon will be interesting to see if he can shake the Badger running back curse that's dated back since a long time. Brent Moss and Terrell Fletcher back in the day. Yeah, we'll see how he does, or if he doesn't pan out like the rest of the Badger running backs have not so far. Pickup of the week, and now it's getting really hard. It's not a whole lot, but the Yobich free agent pickup of the week is Kenny Britt, 128 yards receiving and 1 touchdown, as he is pretty much the only threat for the Rams passing. Tavon Austin just catches blanker screens and stuff, so not a whole lot. On to our FCS rankings. Bites' Badgers are still the unanimous number 1. Dino's Black Dingles and the Rodgers We Trust at 3. Bruisers at 4, Horn Dogs at 5. Bone Storm fall to 6 this week. Gargoyles at 7. Cardinals and Team LBM are tied at 8. Chet's Garbage Men at 10, and then the Kongs and Donkeys are on the outside looking in. Just a predictor there. Right now, definitely the heavy favorite, in my opinion, and the formula's opinion to win it all is the Badgers. We will see if they win their second title in 3 years this year. Looking at the playoff picture, though, looking at the top seed, Badgers right now have the tiebreaker in Rogers We Trust due to their total points. Horn Dogs sitting in the 3 spot, and the Black Dingoes at 4. All those teams are looking very likely to make the playoffs and can actually mathematically clinch with a win. The Badgers and in Rogers We Trust have already clinched the playoffs. Horn Dogs and Black Dingoes can clinch with either a win or certain teams losing this week. But there's a lot of them, so we won't. If they win, they're in. Finally, we'll take a look at the last spot. We have the Bruisers and the Garbage Men tied for the two last spots. Bruisers face a lot tougher road. They face the 7 and 4 Horn Dogs and the 5 and 6 Gargoyles. Garbage Men take on the 8 and 3 Badgers and the 3 and 8 Kongs. Teams still in the hunt: Bone Storm, who faces the 7 and 4 Black Dingoes and the 5 and 6 Team LBM. Gargoyles play the Cardinals. Like I said earlier on in the show, that is pretty much a playoff game. Loser is all but out. And the winner has realistically got a decent shot to make the playoffs. Gargoyles that have finished with the Bruisers, Cardinals have finished with the Horn Dogs, and Team LBM has in Rogers We Trust at 8 and 3, and then the Bone Storm at 5 and 6. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out over the next couple weeks. Should be a close race down there. And finally, games next week. All divisional games in my division. Cardinals and the Gargoyles. We'll have to see there. That, like I said, is pretty much a wild card game right now. And the Bruisers take on the Horn Dogs. Bruisers can get a chance to still win the division by winning that game. A loss by them, though, and their playoff chances are going to be a little bit questionable. And actually, in terms of the ESPN note down there, that's a little bit off because I've just learned that Peterson is out for the year. So bad news for him, bad news for Team LBM. But that'll be the show this week. Good luck to all this week except Griff's Gargoyles. Hope to end your season this week. Should be really close, though. And good luck to all this week, and I'll see you next week. Thanks, bye.